Tracy with MeatRx. I'm a MeatRx coach, and I'm here today with another great success story. I have my friend Sim. Hi, Sim.
Hello.
Hey, thank you for coming. And I wanted to start out by just finding out your story and hearing what was your life like as you were approaching this point of needing to be on a meat-based diet.
Mhm. Yeah. So um, my story is it's a lot of things at once, right? So I was diagnosed with childhood autism, so childhood autism spectrum disorder, back in 2001. But they actually first diagnosed me wrong with major depressive disorder. So that's what they thought it was first, because as children with autism, you depending on what type, because it kind of varies from person to person, but there's this base that's pretty fundamental, or let's say like it's kind of the same for a lot of people in that on that spectrum, was that I had all these sensitivities to stimuli, right? So everything with the senses, so whether light, sound, touch, whatever. So when that wasn't really on the map back then, so that's late 90s. So it wasn't until the early 2000s that that kind of became a thing in, well, clinical psychology, and where the centers were doing the diagnoses for mental health. So fortunately, my mom was like, okay, I know like he has depressive bouts for sure. And I was very depressed as a child, but it didn't really explain everything else. So then thankfully, like she heard these things that were synonymous with autism. And then I got diagnosed, and then we knew, right? So that's when I was, I think, yeah, 10 or 11 or something. So
Oh, okay. So Sim, what kind of a diet were you eating back then? Do you remember?
yeah, so the Belgian, because I am Belgian, that's where I'm from. The diet there is just really standard, or like that's kind of what I would say is standard. So it's like potatoes in whichever form, like they'll have different potatoes for different days, some vegetables, and then some meat. Though as time progressed, like the sizes of the meat became smaller, so your animal protein size was, yeah, steadily going down. Um, then outside of that, there's not massive amounts of processed food, but still, it's Belgium, so fries, chocolates, that's kind of a staple of the culture.
Right, right. Same
Yeah.
here in America too. So yeah,
Mhm.
I understand.
Yeah, so like I think especially because it was the middle of the 90s and the early 2000s, like the food processing wasn't like super big yet. And my mom tried to like keep it healthy, but still there was a lot of stuff in the house that, like chips and stuff like that, that I kind of really felt comfort from. So that's something that we didn't have that much in the house per se, but it was something that I went looking for anyway.
Oh, okay. Okay, so this was when you were around 9 years old, is that correct?
Yeah. Mm.
Okay, so how did it progress after that?
So it virtually stayed the same until I got to puberty, right? And then, all all bets are off basically, because now you're kind of, I don't know if you have kids, but it
Yeah,
just kind of, yeah,
yeah.
it
I
turns into
have four children, so yeah,
yeah,
I understand.
bit of a free for all, right?
Right.
So like my mom's control was less, so then I went out and like tried to buy as much of these different foods as possible that I thought were good. And so that's in that period, when I was eating more processed foods, like these types of nuts that have like these coatings. I don't know if they're very popular in the United States, but they were a big deal in Belgium. And chips, and then of course soda and stuff like that, which my mom wasn't a fan of, right? But I really just adored that stuff, and that's also when my depression started getting worse. So there's a lot of stuff there with that I was eating that just kind of turned into a vicious cycle.
Wow. Yeah,
Mm.
I can see that. So, did you, it took a while on your journey, right? And you tried some different things?
Yeah. So it wasn't until I think it was between 18, 19. I'm not 100% sure when exactly it was, but that I saw a picture of myself that my mom showed me, and I was overweight, so I was slightly uh, shorter than I am now. Seeing that it's quite some time ago, and but I was overweight. I was 80 kilos. I'm not sure how many pounds that is. 190 or something. I think the conversion is like two something. In any case, right? So I was overweight for my size, and I wasn't feeling well, which was obvious. So my mom was like, you're not looking great. You tell me you're not feeling great. Might be time to do something about it. So that was the first time in that entire time of especially my adolescence and puberty that I cut out all the processed foods, right? So it was none of the chips, none of the nuts, no sodas, and that's by far one of the hardest things I had to do. Like even now, I remember it, like how much willpower that took to not have any of that, because the how reward systems tend to adapt and the gut microbiome to all the sugar, right? Which was really kind of giving me my high. Um,
So, what
and
did you replace that with?
Well, running stairs actually. So that was really good. And then the rest of the foods stayed the same, sort of. So what we were having before. So I didn't eat that much potatoes. I just tried to focus on the vegetables and bread because I didn't really know any better. So I was like, all right, I'll just listen to what my mom says, right? And the animal protein kind of stayed the same.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Oh, okay. So what did you, okay, so you cut out all the bad things pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
the sugars
Mm-hmm.
and such.
Mm-hmm.
Was it like a sugar kind of a nut that you ate, like sugar coated or something?
Yeah, they have like this. It's not just sugar. I think it's like a mix of something with wheat. Sugar is in there as well, and it's like fried or something because it's like hard, right? It's pretty. Uh, I'm not. I'm not 100% sure on how to explain that one,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, they're. I don't know. They gave me like different flavors, um, but it's a lot of what is it, like seed oil based stuff that they fried in. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, that
I,
can't have been good all on its own accord.
yeah. So how long did you continue with just being off of the sugars and such?
I think it was about 6 months, 6 months or more. And I lost about 16 kilos, which was a lot of weight, right, in 6 months,
Yeah.
which I was very pleased about just from doing that alone, which was good. I did start noticing that you start feeling better, started thinking a little bit clearer. You could catch my breath. I was like, all right, this is good. I'm feeling better, which had a remarkable result on the depression, not so much the autism. So that kind of stayed the same. It wasn't until I started moving into fasting. So there was a book called The Warrior Diet that I read when I was 19, and that one really set the tone for how I was going to move forwards for the next decade, really,
Uh-huh.
because
Okay.
it kind of put that idea into me of having, well, because the warrior diet, I don't know if you know that, it's kind of like a time restricted feeding, right? So in the sense that it's not very strict because it would still allow you to eat throughout your fast, right? So it's more like a low calorie eating period, and then like a higher calorie eating period, or like a low intake, high intake, right? And yeah,
Like
that really, sorry. Mhm.
like feasting and famine kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So really, really simple, like it's super basic, and I really got into that, and it really changed my view on just foods in general, because in there as well, like it wasn't really super like meat based, but they were advocating for animal proteins. So I was like, all right, I'll eat some more of that. sounds like a solid plan. And yeah, that kind of from there, the ball started rolling. And I kept that up for a good 3 years or something. Like that type of, well, like it's not a real fast, but they, as an introduction to fasting, eating less in the mornings, eating more in the evenings, and started fasting from there. And it's actually in those 3 years that a lot of the autistic symptoms seem to like go away one after the other. I was able to tolerate like a lot of the senses much better. So there was less of these instances where I would like block, right? So that's really common if something would change in the environment, that I would block or freeze or start having like an outburst of rage and stuff like that. So that was very beneficial for, yeah, look, whatever was going on with my gut that had the implications with my autism.
Okay. So did you ever understand why that you got autism or anything?
No, not really. Like that's something that I talked about with my mom. Between the pregnancies, there wasn't all that much difference. Um, it's we're guessing that it's something either environmental or stress, because it was my parents' relationship wasn't very good. So that was a very big stressor in her life when she was pregnant with me. Um, yeah, we're not 100% sure, but I know that her food and everything wasn't like for what I would like it to be as
Right.
I think about, or like what I, from the standpoint that I have now. So I'm sure there were things in there, and I don't know, like there's a lot of different environmental factors that'll have to have had a play in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess there's many that can relate to your situation too. So, so did you go from the warrior diet into something new, or when did you come to carnivore or meat based?
So I was trying different diets like paleo and keto before going into carnivore, because a lot of these things, and that's was what drove me to carnivore, that nothing really seemed to work, as in like not just to keep me lean or build muscle, but also really just to get my mental clarity, my sleep and everything, because that was, yeah, an issue still. So my, even though the autism was gone and the depression was gone, which is for something that I'm extremely grateful for still, and I was happy about that, but I could still feel like I was very intolerant to a lot of different foods. I still am, so I'm in the healing process. And even if I never get to some of the other foods, I'm really okay with that, because it doesn't matter that much to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like there was all this stuff that I ate, I would get bloated or nauseous, or my mood would tank. I've had a lot of the negative bouts if I tend to overeat on certain foods. It's not just carbs per se, but they definitely play a role. So that's why I went into keto, which helped somewhat. But it couldn't really find my stride in there with the fat to protein ratios. Not that it was too much work, it just didn't really sit well with me. Paleo also just didn't really hit the mark. Like I could feel some differences, but it still really didn't give me what I was kind of hoping for or looking for. Um, and then I came to carnivore when I heard Jordan Peterson on Joe Rogan's podcast, when he was explaining what his daughter Michaela went through. I was like, okay, that's really fascinating, because that kind of sounds very similar to my experiences. And
Yeah.
I like, it was the most interesting about it is that to hear that from another person, because that's not something that I had heard before. Because when I talked to my friends in my environment from Belgium, a lot of them didn't have any of these issues, and I wasn't really trolling the forums or looking on forums anywhere. So I didn't know there were that much other people. And I started kind of putting the like link between, guts and just, yeah, your nutrition and mental health. And I was like, okay, so there's something here that's very tangible that I don't understand. But getting into carnivore was then following Michaela's or what Jordan Peterson said really And then I started looking at people. So I came across ShawnBaker, Dominic Rapson, who's my coach now, who's been helping me. And that's actually how I like got into the whole carnivore thing, because I read his book and I was like, okay, that's interesting. So Dominic's book is a very short ebook, and from the things that I heard online in podcasts, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try this, because nothing else has really gotten me to where I wanted to go, which was all the getting alleviated from the gut issues. Right. I think a lot of people can relate that if you have such a sensitive gut, which is a very big thing with people that either have autism or had autism, is that it's super uncomfortable all the time, right? You can't eat a lot of stuff, and it's always these ups and downs, and getting that straightened out, right, where my energy was good, my moods were good, my sleep was just fantastic. That was a very big what is that, like, addition to my quality of life. Really just changed everything.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So how did you implement the carnivore lifestyle? Did you start out with steaks, or what kind of foods, and did you have any difficulties when you started out on that lifestyle?
Difficulties, not really. None that I can remember anyway. I was already fasting a lot, so I wouldn't have gotten any of the, discomfort, I guess you could call it, from switching over to ketosis. So there wasn't really any of that. So I was doing a lot of fasting anyway. And with the carnivore diet, that worked really well. My staple was more minced lamb meat and eggs.
Oh, yum.
So it was really interesting seeing like ShawnBaker with his ribeyes. That's actually something that Dominic had to teach me on how to eat as he came into the programs later on, because I wasn't that much of a steak eater or eating fattier cuts of steak. That wasn't really my thing. But as we got further into the performance, because I do train a lot, it was more convenient to learn how to eat the ribeyes and bigger cuts of steak like that.
Yeah, of course. I love minced lamb. I call it ground lamb, but it's like it's my favorite.
Yeah, it's great.
It's very fatty. I've even heard it called land salmon, because it's really got the omega-3s and stuff, but it's nowhere near salmon, but it's delicious.
Oh it's fantastic. And in Norway, it's kind of it's not super big, but it's very common here to find it. So it was pretty cheap and really really tasty. So it was a really good alternative to start out with.
Yeah, that sounds great. So you did get to steaks though, and what is your daily diet like now? What do you eat? 2 meals a day? Do you what kind of meats and stuff?
So I do eat 2 meals a day, which is a very convenient way to go about. So I'll train in the morning, and then when I'm done, usually I work a little bit, and then I'll have my first meal. The first meal kind of depends on the mood of the day. It could be eggs and bacon, and otherwise it will be steak tartare. So I'll just get like a strip loin of, I think, like 200 grams or something, and I'll just cut that up and have a raw egg and salt in there, and it's beautiful.
Wow. That's hardcore then.
Yeah, well, it's really nice, and it works really well for me. And the evening meals are usually more of the fatty meats, so like the ribeyes. So that's kind of a staple for the evening with some seafood.
Oh, okay. Do you exercise a lot?
Yeah, I basically train daily. Okay. Although the intensities vary, right? So it's not like I'm going to the gym hardcore every day. But so like the intensities vary. I try to just kind of match the intensity of the day towards what my energy levels are. So the better I sleep or the better I recover, then I can just kind of go with that intensity, the highest intensity. And then if it's, a lesser day, I'll just do something that's less intense, like joint mobility drills or some handstands or stuff.
Okay, cool. So what kind of improvements in your body or in your mind even that you discovered after you started carnivore, and how long have you been carnivore?
So I've been carnivore a year and a half. The major improvements I've seen was in sleep and cognition. My lymphatic system, have had issues with that, so with my liver as well. Um, Not being able to clear toxins, I suppose. So that's been a thing before. So my digestion in general and like my gut, um, yeah. So those were the main things. That it was really hard for me to, well, keep off body fat, and I was training a lot before as well. But my body fat would, yeah, fluctuate really heavily, and that was because anytime I was not eating, yeah, things that I should. If it's something that I'm intolerant to, like there would be the water retention and the bloating and stuff like that.
Mm.
So being more stable on that level with both the water retention and my body fat has been really nice. All like just for everything really. Yeah, the major thing I would say is just, or not just, but obviously the gut, or obviously it's not obvious in most cases, but the gut and the brain are connected, right? So going carnivore, it's been very much a big shift in my cognition. And that has been really like sharpness, because I do a lot of writing that's more philosophical in nature, and that has a lot of dimensions, right? So you need to be able to try to address each dimension. And that has been a major thing that I've been able to read things, and also the science around nutrition and mental health and stuff like that. I'm doing a lot of reading on that, and bit by bit understanding that when I got to learn a lot of the terminology, but just being able to follow that was a huge step in my ability to process information, which I thought was very fascinating.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mm.
So, Sim, did you find that having a coach was beneficial, and how did that help you?
Well, with the coach has been, so my coach is Dominic Rapson. He goes by origins.nutrition on Instagram. It's been very helpful for me. I wish I would have had him when I had autism, right? Because it would have gone a whole lot faster, or that I had you guys and the Meat RX community. But yeah, like in terms of how it helps, it's kind of good to have someone there to guide you through the process, even though my adaptation wasn't very severe or anything. For me, coming back from all my mental health challenges and my struggles with my body fat, it's good to have someone in my corner that can go, like, okay, you have a tendency to undereat, which is mainly like a thing, like I want to keep that fat off, but then you go into these bouts of really heavy training, and I would constantly hit the wall. So now I have him to go like, okay, like remember, don't undereat. This is the program. Stick to the program. It's he's got the constraints, or the, like he's like a shoulder on the road, right? To tell me, okay, get back here, and you're gonna be okay. So it's been very beneficial. It really takes the guesswork out of it for me, and it does a good assessment, like I'm sure you guys do, that keeps the client on track. And it's been, yeah, easy to deal with certain things when it came to the food intolerances, because he's got such a wealth of knowledge and steer me clear from certain things.
Oh, that's great. I'm great. I'm glad to hear that.
Mm.
I know your story will help many people. I mean, it's just incredible how you have turned your life around and your health around. And
Yeah, it was a big one.
yeah. So is there anything like you would want to tell somebody that's trying to decide if they should go carnivore? What would you tell them?
I told them it's worth a try, because in a lot of cases, especially when it comes to autism or even depression, because I know like both of them carry a very big stigma. A lot of people have been burned, and it's not just like the pharmaceutical community, it's also just therapies and stuff like that. And I think this one has been something like I've read other people's accounts, which was really nice. And yeah, my own progress or results with it. So it might not solve everything at once, but it will be such a big puzzle piece to get you yeah, going, and it really does make a huge difference.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And I'm glad you agree. So thank you so much, Sim, for sharing your story. And I
Mhm.
really appreciate it. We'll
Thank
see
you for
you.
having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. And we'll see you around the carnivore community then.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Bye-bye.
But